Hello, Teresa Phelps Martin and Lulu, bringing you the energetic signature for March of 2022. Lulu is very scared of the device holding my phone right now. So we'll see what happens. March 2022. I'm just gonna kind of unfold and unpack. There's a lot, but there's also not. But it's so kind of boundless that I got to give a little boundary to it. And so I'm going to give you just kind of the rundown of the key energies of the month. Obviously, this comes from looking at the planetary arrangement in the heavens above and how I apply that to our kind of growth and discovery and our ability to live soulfully. The main signature of the month is water. We still have a lot of energy in cardinal earth and fixed air, but we have a ton of energy moving through the mutable sign of Pisces, which is water. And so it's about feeling into the depths. It's about allowing, surrendering, dreaming, imagining, and intuiting, right? Really letting go of the intellect, although there's still an anchor in that intellect and to have a strategy. So just a caveat there, a little side note there. Okay, it's about tapping into our future to have hopes and dreams, to vision, to use technology and innovation to connect to our values, our ambition, and for future generations. It's about the mystical, the unseen, the bountiful, the joy, our angels, our guides, the magnificence and the compassion. It's about fresh new beginnings, initiatory enthusiasm, to speak the soul's truth, which really we want to surrender to our soul so that we can then bring our truth forward. And this idea of innovative new pathways to expansive freedom. Humanitarian efforts and structure of society that comes from this kind of main concept, as above, so below. So I mentioned I was just going to kind of blurt it all out, okay? So feeling into the depths, we're all kind of exhausted, right? Maybe for different reasons, but a lot has been coming at us individually and collectively. And it kind of seems relentless on some level. In my own personal life, I'm a week out of surgery. I'm on movement restrictions for 6 weeks, which is really, really difficult for me. But I'm trying to anchor into what is that presenting for me. It's presenting a time to slow down, to really heal. And Pisces energy is about self-care. It is about slowing down. It is about tuning in to that whisper of our soul, to dream it, to imagine it, to see it come together in a way that the mind doesn't impede upon, right? So that's the energy we're in right now. One time I said that it's hard for Pisces to be human. The reason for that comment is that Pisces energy is so much bigger than humanity. Okay, Carl Jung is kind of the collective unconscious, is that unconscious energy that informs and influences all of us. It is that unseen. It is the behind the scenes. So when you put all that in, it's the priestess, it's the mystical. When you put all that together, it's hard to put shape and form into it. So Pisces are typically the artists, the musicians, the photographers. It is the energy of reflection. So it's more of the formlessness than the form. Okay, so just wanted to revisit that comment. And when the sun is in Pisces, it's the marking of our season at the end of winter in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's where the winter season begins to dissolve. And I'm peeking out my window and I see 2 birds fluttering around. The sun is bright. The buds are starting to pop through on the branches of some of my bushes. Little bulbs, the greenery of bulbs are poking through the grass. We have this early sign of spring, of renewal and rebirth. And when the sun moves into Aries on March 20th, we have the first day of spring. We have equal day and night. So as the days are getting longer, we feel that enthusiasm, but we're still called in to slow down and tune in. So that is the energy that we will just breathe. Like spring is one of my favorite times of year. I love to garden. I love to dig into the depths. So during Scorpio season, when I planted so many bulbs, thousands of them, I'm curious to see how many will come forward. We went into the depths. Now the depths, feeling into the depths of Pisces, is we want to go into the parts of ourselves that are still calling for healing. Yes, I just said that out loud. To really shine that light into our areas of ourselves that still feel wounded or hurt. To really recognize that there's so much more coming for us, but we want to recognize the innocence, because so much of Pisces energy is innocence. So the new moon happens on March 2nd. It happens at 12 degrees Pisces. And then the first quarter moon happens on March 10th in Gemini. The full moon happens at 27 degrees Virgo on March 18th. And the last quarter, the closing square, happens on March 25th in Capricorn. So that is the Pisces lunation, and I'm struggling with what to write about and the soul scopes, but they'll come. So anyhow, in that lunation, it's really about that energy of looking at what can you heal, the parts of yourself, and in the wholeness of you, because that's what this is all about, the wholeness of you. And that journey of kind of look at it, the Pisces lunation of going through the whole zodiacal journey from the ending to the beginning, because when we have the new moon in Aries, it's really the new astrological year, right? We have a brand new beginning. We start at Aries and go all the way around again, which is confusing if you don't understand the zodiacal chart. So I don't want to spend too much more time. But the Pisces new moon is the ending, right? And what happens with the ending is a beginning. Like Pisces energy for me is that place where your, 12th house energy, I should say, is where you were in your mother's womb, where the seed of you was planted, right? The two parts came together, the egg and the sperm, and they created the zygote, right? And then slowly and slowly and slowly, you've grown to, maybe you're like me, 45 years later, you're sitting here in this shape and form. But we are constantly evolving and growing. So that womb of where we were being held before we knew ourselves, that's Pisces. All right, now Mercury is this energy of our mind, and it is out of its shadow, so moving quickly, and it's sitting with Saturn, which is about strategy and structure and mental focus. So we have this kind of, oh yeah, wait, let's go back and let's really strategize and have a vision for this dream, to focus in on it, to maybe think, be a little intellectual. That way you don't get a little too carried away. The side note about Pisces is it's also about addictions and being delusional, because it's hard to be in this real world. No joke, right? Pisces is ruled by Neptune and Jupiter, which happen to be in Pisces right now and happen to be significant with this Pisces new moon. So when we have that energy, it's when you think of spirits or alcohol, it dissolves the veil. So Pisces energy is about dissolving. It's about spirituality. It's about our soul. It's about our guides. And then here we have Mercury hanging out with Saturn in the energy of Aquarius that is kind of still fixed on how are we going to sustain. How are we going to sustain these new visions, these new hopes, our future? How are we going to really unlock that inner brilliance, or what brilliance has been unlocked that we're going to feed and nourish and tend to and surrender to and flow with and flow forward, so we give birth to it? And so there's the invitation in the mind to be at a higher vantage point right now. And at that higher vantage point, really being open to different perspectives. Mars and Venus, on the other hand, are still in it's an interesting journey. We start off the month with the masculine and feminine energies, the relationship, the desires and our wants, and how we go about and get them, our ambitions, our drive, our direction, they're still hanging out together. It's pretty cool. In Capricorn. They came together last week, I think around the 16th of February, right around Valentine's Day, and they are traveling together, kind of side by side. Mars gets a little faster because Venus is still coming out of her retrograde shadow, and then they're going to walk hand in hand into Aquarius. This is huge. So 2020 Jupiter and, right, last year? Was it last year? 2021? It was 2020, the end of 2020. Jupiter and Saturn were at 0 degrees Aquarius. That's when we talked about the Star of Bethlehem. You know, you could see it in the sky. It was quite the astronomical talk of the century, if you will. Well, Mars and Venus are also going to be together at the same degree. So the fact that they've been together in Capricorn and all the way through Aquarius is something that hasn't happened in like 150 years. The fact that they had two conjunctions this close together. So it's really this like new beginning. And for me, I've been saying this for a long time. It is the marriage to the feminine, to the sacred feminine, to, you know, you could go from everything of female rights and equal pay, but it's more than that. It is really valuing your inner world. Yeah, I paused on that one. Valuing your inner world, that your insides matter just as much as everything outside. And in this, until we start to value our home and our private affairs, and that is not so much of how we're seen from the outside in, but how we're living from the inside out. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's what this new moon is all about, is from the inside out. So they'll be conjunct in Capricorn with Pluto. I know I'm all over the place, but it's just how it works out right now. Pluto, which is the planet of power and transformation. Mars and Pluto being together usually symbolizes war, and we see that happening with Ukraine being invaded. So this moon is also even more of a time to call on our guides and angels and pray and offer support, energetic support or monetary support, because we are here. We can see it all, which is something that's never happened before. Technology and social media and news just coming at us every direction, versus waiting for a delayed telegraph or what have you. And it's changing. There's a coming together around the world that hasn't happened before. And we've all already come together because of this great thing called a coronavirus. So with that being said, we have a lot of potent energy at the beginning of March. This is just the beginning of March. And in this, there's also this invitation to implement new habits, right? Like if you tuned into me at all last month, unlocking your inner brilliance, of really awakening to that light within you and claiming it and honoring her. Now it's time to go into the darker crevices. Like a book that a dear friend recommended to me that she was reading, it's called No Bad Parts. And it reminded me of Internal Family Systems, just when she told me the name. And then it turns out it's actually written by the creator of Internal Family Systems that I was introduced to about 10 years ago, which is the premise of all these parts. You contain all signs of the zodiac within you. You contain every planet within you. Thomas More has a book called The Planets Within. All this energy is inside of you. However, what internal family systems does is help you understand the parts that you created identity when you were kind of young and not fully developed out of trauma, and how you can actually shine a light to these dark areas within and honor it and heal, which is, again, back to this Pisces energy. And using this theory, if you will, of the whole, which is Aquarian, of internal family systems, it's once again, reiterates everything that I've been talking about. It's not just about the outside. It's not just about your job and your CV and your recommendations and the accomplishments of your life, but it's about you being compassionate with yourself, breathing, allowing for the healing. I told the same friend that I'm having to be incredibly patient right now because I'm enduring something from my recovery and survival of cancer that I wasn't expecting. And it kind of hits me at my core, literally and figuratively. And so the main thing I need is patience. And that patience is essential. That is Aquarian energy in its highest, right? Because it can see the bigger picture, so it knows the energy is coming through. But Mercury will move into Pisces on March 9th. And then we're going to have a lot more energy of behind the scenes. And Mars and Venus will move into Aquarius on March 6th. So we kind of leave this heavy earth energy, this cardinal initiatory earth energy, early in March. And we have big shifts. So pay attention to those days to notice what happens for you. And to go even further backwards, the sun will be conjunct Jupiter on March 5th. And the sun meets up with every planet every year, right? Because the sun travels all the way around the sky in our solar year. And so it's going to pass by. Now, sometimes you have Mercury retrograde and it passes. Mercury is always close to the sun, as is Venus. Okay. Makes sense, right? If you think of sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, right? That pattern. So they're always traveling really close to Earth. And so we're going to feel that big shift of energy that's kind of moving quickly. So anchor into the depths of you. Don't forget about yourself and your healing and your need to tend to yourself. But use it as a time to dream, right? Like I'll say it out loud. I am dreaming of my practicum to finish grad school this fall. I have applied for something and now I have to deal with all the details of the paperwork and making sure that program and my program align. And it was really beautiful because when I applied for this, when I had the interview, what they said to me, they were like, "You are interdisciplinary." And that just meant the world to me, because I have worked so much of my adult life is to be inclusive, but also realize the bigger picture and not get too heavy set in just one area of something. So to be appreciated for that interdisciplinary approach is a first, if you will. And you could say that Pisces energy is that interdisciplinary. It is the many in the one. Okay. All right. So just so you can understand, the sun conjuncting Jupiter on March 5th, that sun hits Jupiter every year. Okay. It's a yearly aspect. Last year, the sun was conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius. And it was really a blessing that I was able to give a reading to somebody who is an Aquarian, and that sun conjunct Jupiter was on her birthday. And just the encouragement and the benevolence to trust and run and leap. And I haven't heard from her in some time. However, she was so excited and had a renewed enthusiasm for the direction of her life. And she's lived a lot of her life. She's a pretty snazzy individual. So the sun conjuncting Jupiter in Pisces will only happen every 12 years. Jupiter is at home in Pisces. It is the traditional ruler because thousands of years ago, the naked eye could not see beyond Saturn. So they didn't know there were planets beyond Saturn. So the way, it's really cool, and one day I can't wait to show you, the way that the moon rules Cancer and the sun rules Leo, that Mercury rules Gemini and Mercury rules Virgo, and Venus rules Taurus and Venus rules Libra, and they kind of, the planets go out until they meet again, and they meet at Jupiter and Saturn. And they meet with Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, and Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius in the traditional system. And Jupiter is kind of like, Deborah Silverman refers to Jupiter as Santa Claus, the jolly old individual that is just always making everybody laugh and has benevolence and good fortune over and over again. I kind of refer to Jupiter as Jesus, that unconditional love that is everywhere. Jesus is, right, the sign of Pisces, the fish, the ability to feed so many, walk on water, so on and so forth. And in that, it's we're actually leaving the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. Now I've gone on a total tangent, which is going to make it hard to wrap this up. So Jupiter is benevolence. It's you have Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, the octaves of these planets. And so it is that kind of like just loving, kind, benevolent dream and trusting in the dreams, trusting in the future, trusting in the benevolence, trusting in the goodness. And then Neptune is also in Pisces and will be in Pisces for some time. And so it is this kind of energy. So those of you who have birthdays later in the Pisces season, your sun is really close to Neptune, and that can make for an intense aspect, by the way. However, it's because there's so much dissolve. It's just so much. You feel so much. You see so much. You experience so much. You're not sure what's yours or what is somebody else's. So it's really important to have boundaries. And boundaries can be hard to cultivate. So we have the sun conjunct Jupiter on March 5th. We have on March 6th, Venus and Mars conjunct one another again, entering into Aquarius. This is big, you guys. These are, to be alive for these cosmic occurrences is very, very cool. Then on March 9th, Mercury moves into Pisces, right? So we'll have the sun, we'll have Jupiter, we'll have Mercury, and we'll have Neptune all in Pisces. These are the deep waters. So if you are an empath, you want to be aware of that you're going to feel even more of all that is being felt around you. But you're going to have this ability to have access to your guides. When Mercury goes into Pisces, you're going to be able to talk to your guides on a much higher level. Commit to therapy, commit to some deeper healing work with those who you trust, okay? And then the sun will be conjunct Neptune on March 13th. Oh, daylight savings time is when we also shift, right? So on March 15th, the sun is conjunct Neptune. It's going to be very, very dreamy. Maybe just as dreamy that we get an extra day, an extra hour in the day, right? Then the full moon will be on March 18th at 27 degrees in Virgo, because the moon will be 180 degrees from the sun. It's as far away from the sun as it can possibly be. So when we're in that energy, we really want to tap into the understanding of what our the moon will feel a little bit lonely, but kind of what is the work we're committing to? Okay, what are we of service of? And then we have Mercury conjunct Jupiter on March 21st. Mercury conjunct Neptune on March 23rd. And the sun will move into Aries on March 20th. And then we feel this little kind of like burning through the muddy waters, right? Kind of burning off the moisture, the intensity, the healing, where new sense of freedom comes forward. So I feel like I was all over the place, but I still wanted to show up. And as kind of Pisces energy is all over the place, and my progressed moon is in Pisces. Everybody has a progressed moon. It changes every 2 years. So it just means I'm in the lens of Pisces energy anyway. And there's a ton of Pisces energy. And I don't want to get into it too much. I'm coming out of surgery a week after. The world is a very interesting place right now. And it's just like there's water under our feet. And so in that, can you feel into your own depths? Can you remember that the planet's changing, right? Like the end of March, on March 28th, Venus will be conjunct Saturn. We're going to feel structure around these new relationships with the feminine and really negotiating the value of these for the long term. I know I just had to throw that one in because it jumped off the page at me. And when the sun moves into Aries, we just initiate a new season, right? So perhaps hold in this balsamic energy and the kind of coalescing of all that was, surrendering to what was, and really knowing that we get to create a new relationship with what's coming. Although it may still be foggy, Neptune energy is very foggy. It's very blurry. Especially when it's in Pisces. So trusting in the unfolding, dream a bigger dream, honor your insides, and feel into the depths and allow for healing and those levels so that you can feel more whole and more complete, right? So when the sun moves into Aries and we feel that shift in early April, when we get to the new astrological year of the new moon in April, I'm just going to jump into the future to remind you that it will happen. And it happens on April 1st at 11 degrees. So just trust into that fire. We've been absent of that energy of fire, of spirit, of faith, of enthusiasm, of energy, and it will start to come back to us come April. So I feel a little wordy all over the place, but that is the energetic signature for March of 2022. And you can visit my blog to read this month's soul scopes. And what it is the soul scopes look at the lunation of the new moon and the full moon. And it really is about your rising sign, because that's just how you write soul scopes. And if you are a day chart, you would want to read your sun sign anyways. If you're night chart, you would want to read your moon sign. So knowing your sun, moon, and rising sign is kind of like the call of this new age. It's not so much about the horoscopes that have been written through popular times, although I'm grateful for them. It's why I've always stayed curious, being a Gemini. However, understanding the deeper layers of your chart, it's so freeing. And if I was to look at your chart, I don't read your deep, dark secret. What I do is I see the wholeness of you, the parts of you, the understanding of kind of the stage in which life has presented itself to you, how you tend to feel and be nurtured, and how you can come more alive. And everybody has a sun sign, a moon sign, a Mercury sign, a Venus and Mars, a Jupiter and Saturn, a Uranus, a Neptune, and a Pluto. You also have asteroids of the goddesses. And I didn't mention much about Uranus, but it's really, you're going to get these little hits of how can that sparkle continue to shine? How can you take on the new habits for this new way of being? And maybe it's just a new habit of knowing your sun and moon and rising sign. You can go to CoStar, you can go to astro.com. You're going to always get a lot of information, but all you need is to know your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. And when you read the soul scopes, read your rising sign, because that will share what part of your chart is being illuminated with this lunation. All right, Teresa Phelps Martin signing off for now. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you using your time to listen, and I will be back next month on the 1st for the energetic signature of April. And in the meantime, you can find me in the Soulfully You Facebook group with daily posts that inspire you and help you understand how the stars are shining for you.